Today, perhaps, is an inauspicious day to be recording something about the pandemic. It's a misty day here on Cape Cod, and I happen to have a few minutes free while my grandchildren are taking golf lessons. But theology shows up wherever you are. And today, I want to talk about N.T. Wright, hope, God, and the pandemic. Theology begins often where the pain is, where the contrast between our hopes and the reality of suffering, where our world falls apart and we look for some vision of hope or some way forward. During the pandemic, we discovered how important theology is. We've discovered that theology can cure or kill. There's been some bad theology during this pandemic. Some of it has involved the belief that God is responsible for everything that happens to us. Others see the pandemic as God's punishment for certain of America's sins. Usually they're pet sins like abortion and homosexuality and marriage equality. But there are other ways to look at this pandemic that free us for possibilities rather than mire us in guilt. And those involve seeing the pandemic as an opportunity to transform our lives. Now, N.T. Wright is one of the great biblical theologians of our time. And recently he wrote a book entitled God and the Pandemic, in which he sees this as a time for lamentation and for mission. Lamenting where we are, lamenting the exile that the church has found itself in, but growing in mission. The early church, Wright believes, was known by its charity and care for the vulnerable, by its companionship with those who are suffering. And that should be our calling today. During this time of pandemic, the church should not retrench, Wright believes, but move forward in service, in proclamation, in love, even though we are severely restricted in our movements at this time. Now, I agree with N.T. Wright. I think this is a time for lamentation, for grief. But the exile we're in can also be an opportunity for creative transformation. The exile we're in can be an opportunity to reflect on our hopes and then let our hopes guide us toward the future. This is an apocalyptic time. By that I mean it's a time that's revealing where we are in the midst of catastrophe. It's a time that reveals both our pain and our errors and where we need to reform. We have discovered in this pandemic the revealing of our medical system in the United States is inadequate. It's revealed the dangers of nation first and Christian nationalism policies that isolate and condemn rather than join. It's revealed the dangers of individualism and social, political, economic, and racial inequality. But it's also revealed to us possibilities of new life, possibilities of looking at ourselves and the world in new ways. For me, what it's revealed is, in fact, the nature of life. The nature of life is interdependent. The nature of life is basically an opportunity for creativity and possibility, our own role as agents in shaping the future. It's revealed to me the importance of our lives as God's companions, following our vocation to be God's companions in healing the world. What we yearn for in the future guides what we do today. And that exile at the margins can in fact be the frontier of new possibilities, the frontier of looking at the world with new eyes, seeing that church can be different, that our mission is a mission of healing. Our mission is a mission of hospitality and inclusion, that we need to let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Wright and I agree that this pandemic is a call to vocation, is a call to mission, a call to transformation, that we are God's hands, we are God's feet, we are God's voice in changing the world, in bringing healing in this most devastating time, in seeing ourselves as planetary citizens, in seeing ourselves as having a responsibility for the whole earth, as well as our individuality, as moving from self-interest and national interest to world loyalty. This surely is the gift of faith and hope during this time of pandemic.